Hey everybody, welcome back to DigiBros.
Hullabaloo and howdy do, musty prawns and Timbuktu.
Who was that from?
It's from Courage Cowardly Dog. Kick him in the dishpan. Woo woo.
We just took simul shits.
It was
Rank, nasty,
disturbing.
horrible. Sounds like we both took the same shit.
Yes. We
So
went to
really
Chick-fil-A.
rough, nasty shit. It was like 2 hours ago.
It was
Couldn't
destructive.
have been what we were shitting. I had Mexican yesterday
Yeah.
and Arby's. So I was probably shitting some combination of those.
So one of Hope's friends bought Neil Breen's pass-through, his latest film.
Oh man.
I had the pleasure of watching that. First of all, it showed up to her in a... It was delivered, you know, just in like a pack of mail with, you know, Neil Breen's address, you know, and handwriting on it. And it was delivered on just a burnable DVD.
Yeah.
In a broken jewel case.
For like
So it's just
$30,
like some
right?
DVD, yeah, for $30. It was a broken jewel case with like an unmarked burned DVD.
That must be why he charges so much. Is that he has to mail them all individually?
Yeah, of course. So he obviously is. Terrible film. Don't watch it. It's not like Fateful Findings where it's like back-to-back memes and hilarity the whole time. It's way preachier and way like kind of boring. It makes no sense. It's at least somewhat funny because it's about like the Mexican border for most of it, and it's like these people trying to cross the Mexican border and they get like captured by who the fuck knows. I think it's supposed to be like people working for the government that are like collecting the drugs from the people like crossing the border and then like distributing them to politicians or something. And it's super funny because the Mexicans crossing the border are just like random people, like a random assortment of races, and it's like, you know, white guys and black guys and stuff, but they're supposed to be Mexicans, you know, illegally crossing the border. So like there's some memes, there's some fun in there, but it's not Fateful Findings level.
Have you seen his other ones? Double Down? And
No, I know Double Down's on YouTube because the same guys were showing us that it was on YouTube. So I look forward to... Apparently Double Down is like a fucking ridiculous action movie that's like a whole ton
That's
of
the one
fun.
I want to see the most because it's him in the desert with all the laptops, which is hilarious.
And
the canned chicken.
There's some laptops in Pass Through, but it's not the same entertainment value. So I would not recommend buying it for $30. It is not worth $30.
I can't believe it
I would have been very sad if I
Why
had
has
bought
nobody
it.
ripped it online?
I don't know. You can't find it.
Get Hope's friend to do it. Like, set
true.
up a fucking torrent for
I
Christ's
spent
sake.
$30, man. They deserve to have an exclusive copy of Neil Breen's film,
I guess that maybe that's
even
the
if it's
mindset
not
everybody has.
worth $30 at all.
Yeah, shit. Well, you distracted me with the Neil Breen story, and I forgot what I was gonna say. I forgot how much this show damages my eyes. I don't know what it is about this show that I always have like terrible eye strain from doing it. But I was trying to read fucking Astro Boy while taking a shit, and I couldn't focus my eyes on the page at first. Like everything was blurry and shitty, and I was like, oh god.
I don't know, man. It's because the PS4 doesn't run at a solid 60 frames. It's just it ruins everything. It ruins my entire life. Destroys my eyes. It's poison.
I don't remember. I don't know if it's just because it's too bright, or if it's just because I don't. I think it's mostly the not blinking when I talk thing. It seems to be an issue whenever I do long podcasts. Because I get eye strain just from doing podcasts. Not even from looking at a game.
Because you're broken and insane.
Yep, those are accurate descriptions. But anyway, I was reading Astro Boy, and I think I'll probably talk about this again when I cover the manga on Manga Mondays. But I don't know how long it's gonna take me to read it. And I want to talk about it right
Fucking
now.
hell. I just got killed by some dweeb.
In my experience, people with Asperger's gravitate towards Osamu Tezuka. I like or autism. Our cousin Evan, who's severely autistic, he would go on these long rants about how Tezuka, you know, like made Kimba the White Lion and Disney ripped it off and all this shit. He would give that speech all the time. You remember this, right?
Yes.
And he would talk about how much he likes Tezuka and stuff, even though I didn't really have the impression he'd really read much of it. But I've just noticed that, like, I've heard that argument from several people with Asperger's or autism, that they have this tendency to go on rants about, like, how Disney ripped off Tezuka, or just generally having this great appreciation for Tezuka. And I was never sure why. I was like, is it just because he's, like, an original? Like, are they just into the fact that he's the godfather of manga, or, like, what's going on? I knew some, you know, I've known bloggers with Asperger's who are really into Tezuka manga. And then I'm reading Astro Boy, and I've read a few of his things before. And there's certain stuff that I think most people would chalk up to it being old, or it being, like, whimsical and for kids. But the specific weirdness of Astro Boy feels like what an autism person would write. Like it feels almost
what an autism person.
It feels almost like reading like Sonichu, or like
the fuck,
or the Legend of the Elemental Masters.
Are you trying to say Osamu Tezuka's autistic?
I mean, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that he had Asperger's.
Yeah.
One of the most prolific people ever. You know, he wrote like over 1,000 manga.
Oh shit!
Literally over 1,000. Some of them are long. Like, Astro Boy and Blackjack were both like 30 volumes apiece.
Yeah.
And he would write those while writing like hundreds of one-shots or one-volume manga or like couple volume things. He has a million fucking things. Like, if you go on Wikipedia and look at his list of works, it's like insanely long, right? This was a guy who was he had a full doctorate. He was a doctor, but he never actually practiced medicine. Like, he became a doctor, started drawing Astro Boy, it got really popular, and so he went to go become a manga artist. But, like, so much of the stuff he does is exactly what autistic people do in their stories, which is to focus on lots of weird, random details, throw in nonsensical jokes that are, like, in-jokes for the audience that nobody gets, that don't even make sense, write himself into the stories, reuse the same stable of characters for every stories he writes. Like, it's just tons of stuff that I see the same thing happening with autistic writers who've probably never heard of him, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like I don't know if it's just that way of thinking, you know, or just like Asperger's writing, and like, I'm reading it and I'm like, this just feels so much like that. Like, just the odd ways that characters will talk, where they'll almost Breen-like, where they'll bring up like unrelated social issues or something, like relating to a situation. Like a character will see a rocket blasting off and be like, oh, and that's why the environment is like this too. Like, they'll just make these odd asides to other shit that has nothing to do with what's going on, other issues that are clearly on Tezuka's mind, you know, which feel like just nods to, like, because this is a children's manga. Like, it's made for being entertaining and childlike in the storyline, but then it's also, like, weirdly dark in some ways.
Yeah.
And has all these nods to stuff that only really adults would understand. But it doesn't feel like it's shouting out to the adults. It feels like it's just there because it was on his mind, you know? Like, it just feels so random and bizarre. And it really does remind me of, like, reading Sonichu or something. Yeah. And the fact that so many people with Asperger's and autism seem to connect with it. It's kind of like how I've always said that I think that Hideaki Anno probably has Asperger's, because everyone with Asperger's connects with Shinji and relates to Ava, you know. And
you were right.
And when you see the way that Anno is presented by the other people in his life, they all present him as like this really eccentric guy who doesn't understand communication. You watched Blue Blazes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anno in that show is like a full-blown spurg. You know, he's like totally doesn't know how to communicate with people at all.
Yeah.
And is just doing like weird stuff and like ranting about things he's passionate about apropos of nothing. You know, like, it just feels like the fact that those authors are presented as being different from normal. Their stories have these weird, like, they communicate in a way that most stories don't, and people who have Asperger's and autism connect with them so much. Makes me think maybe they had Asperger's, you know? Maybe Osamu Tezuka had Asperger's, which would explain a lot. How do you become the kind of guy who can put out 1,000 fucking manga, you know? Like,
very carefully.
It takes that kind of insane work ethic, you know, and just like single-minded dedication to doing the one thing you enjoy doing, at the expense of everything else. So yeah, that's my theory, a gay theory.
Wow, I don't care about Osamu. You sure are at autism.
Yeah, but you care about weird Asperger's connections.
Yeah. Asperger conspiracies.
Yeah.
You know, underdiagnosed old Spurglords who are masterful artists.
I say this in this book.
Spurgy.
We'll just say a thing that I wrote one time, where I was saying that like there's so many people who we see as like these eccentric geniuses of the past who I'm pretty sure if they existed now we would just diagnose them with Asperger's.
Yeah.
Like that would just be our explanation for why they act that way. Like, because now that we know about Asperger's and autism, like it feels like a lot of what we used to just say was like inexplainable eccentricity now is just very easily explainable having a different mental type, you know?
Yeah.
Just like being neurally atypical. Like
atypical.
Yeah.
Did I explain on here how I'm IQ fluid?
Oh.
So
what was your you said you were trans intelligent or something like that.
No,
and
I think I landed on IQ fluid.
Well, that's what Devu came up with.
Yeah.
That was his special contribution.
I'm IQ fluid because like sometimes I'm smart, and then like
at
other times I'm like stupid as fuck, bro.
Yeah, dude, like sometimes I have no fucking idea what's going on. I just
God damn it, I
totally
was
lost.
right fucking there.
Yeah. But I think there's like
Trans retarded.
basically what I was going over in this passage from this thing I wrote is that like things that ultimately end up mattering in the long run, like basically you have a movement happens, let's say like punk rock, right, or punk, original punk. Punk is something that like came from a specific place and time. It was something that like mattered a lot and was a movement in this one moment, in this one area. And then over time, as it connects with more people, the meaning changes and it becomes more of like it's understood in different ways by different people. It becomes appropriated, you know, and it becomes something bigger than what it originally was. And then eventually it's just like something that is just a part of culture and we don't even think of it as like what it was.
Yeah.
Like when punk came out, it was edgy. It like meant something to be punk. But now it's totally normal. Like punk happened 40 years ago. People my age grew up with it. There's nothing striking about its existence. We always knew it was a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like the look, the music, everything about it.
It's like dadcore now.
Yeah, or just we expect that to be a thing that exists, you know?
Yeah.
Like when it came out, it was like, what is this? I'm sure, you know, in the way that we feel about like mumble rap today.
Mumble rap.
But in 10 years, mumble rap will have always existed, and it'll be like, yeah, that's just a part of the world. And so like all these things that begin as specific movements to like a place and time eventually just become obvious, except for certain things where even after the passage of time they're still fucking weird, and those are the things where you look back and you go, maybe that was autism, you know, or maybe that was just like, because like punk I feel like is something that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like anybody who feels a dissatisfaction with society and wants to
What the fuck? Why did I take so much
that
damage right there? Shit. Oh, thank God.
Wait, don't breathe a sigh of relief just yet.
Nah, I know it's good. Oh, what the fuck? Never mind. They were like shooting magic shit at me. Oh, I'm getting cursed.
Sit at the bonfire. Anyway.
Yeah, we made it to the boss. This is the boss I did the stream of.
Oh, I didn't know you were already at a boss.
Yeah.
I can tell you were kind of not really paying that much attention for a little bit there because you're trying to get through that.
That segment is frustrating.
That grind level.
You know, doing it again.
I mean, that was obviously like a big hard boss run moment, as there is often in these games. Oh, Demon in Pain and Demon from Below.
Yeah, this boss is pretty rad.
called Demon in Pain.
Yes. I don't know why the other one isn't in pain, but they're like basically the same thing.
Well, one's on fire.
Well, they switch back and forth.
I see. Like they switch their fire back and forth?
Yes. One becomes powered, and then the other one powers down. And then you have to like switch back and forth. Well, it's a neat mechanic. So now they're both powered up. So now you just gotta run the fuck away because they're gonna trash you. Yeah. This one took me quite a few tries.
Anyway, like, yeah, punk is something that makes sense to everybody. We all get it implicitly. You're deliberately dressing in a way that you could not get a job offer.
Yes.
You know, you're dressing in a way that says "fuck you" to the system. You're making music that's like ironic or postmodern, that doesn't conform to the general idea of what is supposed to be good music. You know, but we all get it, and it makes sense. But then there's shit that comes out that no matter how much time passes will never make sense to everybody, you know? And some of it is because it's again, being postmodern. Like, you're not supposed to like it. It's always supposed to be weird. But even that stuff, like something like, let's say, John Cage's 433, right? The 4.5 minutes of science performance.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't like that, we all get it. We get what he's doing. You know, it's a deconstruction of music. We understand. But then something like the book Ulysses, like, was he just insane? Like, what's going on? There's some stories that, like, no matter how much time passes, everyone just has to kind of look at it and be like, what the fuck was this guy on? You know, like, what was going on with this dude?
Like the guy who did Alice in Wonderland. Where you're like, is this guy like a drugged out pedophile? Like, you know he was drugged out.
Yeah. Like, some stuff you can look back on it and say, well, this is what the social
slam.
Like, here's what the social political situation was at the time. Here's what people were going through. So that's what this guy was representing. You know, you go, oh, this was clearly a response to the Hitler regime. You know, yeah, that's what this artistically represents. And then there's stuff where you're like, even at the time, this guy must have been weird, right? Like, even then and now, and like for all time, this will always be something that we look at and go like, this dude had something going on. He was not no average Joe. This is not something anybody else ever would have come up with. You know, this is like, this is always gonna feel a little odd. And like, that's what I was thinking about as I was reading that Astro Boy book, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that Tezuka did, people would probably think that's just how it was back then.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, like all these weird asides and the unconventional kind of like storytelling structure. Oh, it was the 50s. They didn't have all that shit figured out. He was the father of manga, you know, like he originated all these ideas. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, even in the 50s, did anybody write this way? Like, nobody he was taking inspiration from must have wrote this way. You know, like, he was reading comics. He was reading other people's
aspect
manga.
of like weird old Japanese storytelling. It's always pretty strange.
I don't know, man, because I've read a lot of anime, read a lot of manga and watched a lot of anime. You know, older stuff usually to me is more typical. Like, usually it's more like classically styled. Like, it's very 3-act, very like clear what you're getting yourself into from the start, and there's not a lot of like weird shit in it. Like, because over time everyone tries to push the envelope and make things more experimental and more atypical. And you could say again that, like, well, there wasn't like a standard in manga at the time, but there was a standard in storytelling. There was a standard in comics. Comics have been around for 50 years.
Books.
You know? Yeah, books. Like, the way that he wrote, it just doesn't feel like anything else I've read. You know, it's like this is a definitive Tezuka style. Nobody could copy this, like, deliberately. You know, it's just so obviously the product of his mind.
Yeah.
So maybe he just wasn't a normal guy, you know, which what normal guy could have done what he did. You know, the sheer breadth of content. Holy shit, there's a part 2.
Of course. There's always part 2.
I thought that seemed easy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got his fucking wings out now. He's a big boy on campus.
Got the classic Dark Souls style of, like, you fight a boss and you're like, man, that was hard. And then it goes into part 2 and it's like a harder boss.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, now I have to keep my flasks from the first. I have to get so good at the first boss that I never get hit, so I have enough flasks for the second boss.
Well, I think that's the point. The first part is the teaching.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, here's the mechanics of the fight. Master these.
Well, then it
you'll
changes the
actually
mechanics
fight a boss.
entirely.
Yeah, well,
Now we choose giant laser beams. And look, I do barely any fucking damage to him.
yeah, holy shit. Version seems much harder. If he can get his head
Oh!
out of this one. Yeah, this seems-
He at least has simpler attacks and stuff. I can do the parry thing.
Get him. Yeah! Fuck yeah!
Remember when
Fuck
I
yeah,
when I learned how to fight him, it wasn't so bad.
I mean, so far it's doable. It's not
He
down to
he has
athletic,
some
so I
like
don't
one
think
hit
it's
kill
gonna-
moves, you know,
yeah.
where it's like you gotta be on his ass, or he's gonna end up doing this.
It certainly
you
doesn't seem
good with it.
like Orphan of Coast bad or anything.
Oh no, nothing in this DLC is bad. Orphan of Coast is the hardest boss in the franchise. This DLC doesn't quite top it, which is almost a disappointing part of it, where it's like the final boss of this is really, really good, but he doesn't get to that level of like, it took me forever. Like, it took me like 10 tries, you know? Because I was so used to playing well at that point that I was just like, alright, I get it. Shit, I don't know what it is. Like, I could do this if I had more healing. Shit, fuck. Choose check.
I'm just gonna wind down this episode until
Ah!
die or kill him. Oh, next time on Ninja Bros.
Yeah. You get a big laser beam.